Hello there and welcome back to another ITH video, and today we have been invited down to Oxford where it's very wet and very rainy to the launch of this, the Mini Electric. Right, so looking on the outside of this Mini Electric, okay, pretty much same as with a standard Mini. You've got the Cooper S style fake bonnet vent here. Still silly, but hey, it looks great, so who can argue? Biggest change you're going to notice is this, which is the blanked off grille. There is a slightly small little slit up here to get some airflow through, but of course you haven't got radiators and all that gubbins under there, so you don't need a big honeycomb grille letting all that air come through. Now this strip along it here is in energetic yellow. That is optional, that can be grey or there's no cost for it, you can have it in yellow. I like the yellow, it looks good. We've got a slightly bigger front splitter here. I think it all goes to make things a bit more aerodynamic. Oh, nice LED headlights here as well. These are standard on all three levels. Here we've got the 17-inch alloys. Now these are the sort of the launch wheels. We've got the lovely, again, energetic yellow strip around the outside, and they, if you'll notice, look quite a lot like a 3-pin plug that we have here in the UK. It's because it's plug-in electric, all that gubbins. Another little badge here. Now one thing you notice on the badge as well, this little Mini logo for the badge here, that's again like another little charging plug. It's all very, very clever, you see. I like this. Big funky wing mirrors. Down here where you would normally stick your fuel in is now your charging port. You've got the normal Type 2 socket at the top there, and at the bottom is where you do your DC charging with the big chunky thing that's the size of a small bottle of Coke. Anyway, moving on, round the back, very much same as normal Mini. Got a spoiler at the back here. We have got some lovely Union flag rear lights. No tailpipe, of course, because there's no engine. And that's pretty much it. So let's have a look at the interior. Okay, so inside the Mini Electric, it's a Mini. It's the same as you get in all the other cars, apart from one key thing. Right in front of you here, you've got this very nice digital display. Now this was first seen in the limited run GP model, but it's now available right here. And you know what? It looks fantastic. It's got all of your lovely funky EV style graphics on there, and it's really big and really clear. Big fan of that. Now, what you get on this Mini Electric is a choice of 3 levels. They start out at about £24,400 is the level 1. Now that still comes with some really good kit. You get full LED headlights, you get the navigation system, Apple CarPlay, all that kind of stuff. Then level 2 goes up, it's another £2,000. That gets you much more comfort-based options. That gives you things like parking sensors, you get a rear view camera and heated seats. You also get these rather nice, because this is a level 2 spec car. I think these are really nice. They're sort of almost tweed type material, quite rough fabric, but it's it's funky and it's not leather, and I'm a big fan of these. And then at the top you've got level 3, which comes in at £30,400. Now that is everything you could possibly imagine thrown at one car. It's got head-up display, it's got the Navigation Plus system, panoramic roof, anything you can possibly imagine that has got on it. I personally would go for this level 2. I think the spec on this is really good, and for the price, you know what? One thing they told us in the factory is that even the level 1, if you spec a standard Cooper S to the same level as the level 1, it's actually more expensive than the EV version. So that's a big bonus for me. Okay, so quick talk about practicality. This is pretty much the same as a standard Mini inside. There's no real differences. So you've got this armrest on this spec, you've got a little tray here, cup holders down the front, charging socket down there, and along with the USB, pretty tiddly little door bins, and of course, glove box. Now, one thing, a lot of EVs, because of the way they're set up, they have a frunk or a front boot. This doesn't have that. Because of the way that they have got the electric Mini to go down the same line to be built as the standard petrol cars, basically all of the electric motors and cooling bits and all the brains and all that kind of stuff all goes in one large metal frame that is roughly the same size as the petrol/diesel engines. So what that means is there's no space under the bonnet. that's where it goes in. It means that they can drop in either a petrol engine or a diesel engine or an electric powertrain in there on the line with no changes, which from a manufacturing point of view is absolute genius, and a big thumbs up to Mini for doing that. So what it means is there's no extra space in the front. Right, onto the boot. I'll get this thing open. And yeah, as you can see, it's pretty much a mini boot. There's not a whole lot of space in here, enough for your shopping and whatnot. Under here we have quite a large second storage floor under here, but it's taken up entirely with these bad boys, which is all your charging cables. You've got we've got the normal Type 2 charging cable here, which gives you slightly more juice. And there's also your one that plugs into your 3-pin socket at home as well. So, of course, you have a 60-40 split rear seat here. Now, this is a really good design because you don't lose any boot space. You have got this T-shaped 37.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, which goes under the rear seats and down through the center console area. So you don't lose any boot space in that area, but it does mean everything inside is raised up ever so slightly, just a few millimeters, and you do seem to notice that when you're sitting in it as well. But other than that, no, it's pretty much a Mini inside. And thanks to BOTB.com, you could win your very own Mini for under £2. It's a worldwide competition and you only need to be 16 or older to play. And if you don't fancy a Mini, there are almost 200 cars to choose from, with tickets starting at just 85p. Right, so now we are off and driving. I've got to deal with the first and most important thing that everyone talks about when they talk about electric vehicles: range. This has got a 37.5 kilowatt hour battery. Now that means, in broad terms, what you're looking at is a quoted WLTP mileage of 144 miles. Realistically, when it's 5 degrees and chucking it down with rain, so you've got the heater on and you've got the windscreen wipers on and all that, you're looking at actually about 110 to 120 miles range. Now, of course, instantly everyone goes, oh, that's not doable, and you're no, tapping away at their screens and saying that it's not enough range. Frankly, that is nonsense, because the majority of journeys in the UK actually are only between 25 and 40 miles long every day. Yes, lots of people do more mileage than that, but it's just not actually the case. Mini themselves, they've said in our presentation this morning that there are something like 1.5 million households in the UK that could quite happily use one of these cars in their household. So they've got one car that they use for all the big journeys, and they've got another car that they use for the smaller journeys. And that is where this will come into its own. These are going to sell like hotcakes in London and all the kind of smaller town areas where you're going to use something like this every day. But you're only going to use it for short journeys in and around town, that sort of thing. You want something small and nippy. And that is where people need to buy these cars, I think, because they are perfect. Because what you get is, as well as nice regenerative braking, which is happening right now, and we're not having to use it, in town you generally go from very little speed, so we're talking, as we are now, about 10 to 12 miles per hour. But you're driving around town, you go, oh, there's traffic, and you go, oh, I need to nip over there to that junction. You put your foot down, and as with every other of these EVs, they take off like only an electric car does. That's because this has got 270 Newton meters of torque from 0 RPM, like all the EVs. So from a standstill, you've got all of the torque available and you just rock it off the line. But they are so quick. It's something like 3.5-ish seconds to get to 37 miles an hour. And yes, that is supercar speed to 60, but it's a flipping quick thing, this is. So as with every Mini, there are driving modes. When you get in, it starts on mid. Now, you can either go up to sport, which I'll talk about in a minute, or you can go down to green. Now, green just basically, when you go to sport, everything gets a bit tighter and a bit faster and a bit more grrr. When you go to green, everything gets a little bit softer. Suspension and the steering is a bit softer, and the throttle response is a bit softer as well. There is also a green plus mode right at the bottom. Now, if you've got a long journey ahead of you and you want to optimize the range of this thing, what green plus does is it turns the AC right down, and it basically makes the car optimize range over everything else, which is nifty to have if you suddenly realize that you've got 70 miles to go and you've only got 70 miles range. So you put it into green plus, everything's a bit better. But But of course, this is, after all, a Cooper S. So I'm going to sit here, I'm going to put it into sport. Now, instantly, it actually speeds up. That's because it's to do with the throttle position. Where I was before and where it is in sport now means I can put my foot down and we get all of the performance in one go. It's quite quick. Even at 60 miles an hour, you put your foot down and it still picks up. Now that's because there is 181 brake horsepower in this thing. This is actually quite a lot. Now the 0 to 60 time on this is actually 7.3 seconds. Now that's fairly ordinary for a hot hatch. It's actually only 0.4 of a second behind the petrol engined Cooper S, which I think is pretty impressive. Now, as with most EVs, the top speed is pretty low. The top speed of this is 93 miles an hour. Now that is obviously limited because if you start to push these things really, really quickly at height, you've got a lot of drag at that sort of speed and the range is just going to absolutely plummet. And frankly, the speed limit in this country is 70 miles an hour, so 93, more than adequate. Now when it comes to handling, this is actually quite an interesting one. Because of the position of the battery, that is very low down, you get extra weight in the car, which you can sometimes feel in a corner, but it means it's low down, it feels planted, it feels a lot more solid, and that's because of the 50-50 weight distribution. And it's still most definitely a Mini. You've got a slightly firmer ride, and it's still got that slightly go-karty feel to it. If you want a fun driving EV, this is right up there with the best of them. Well, there we go. That's the end of a very long, very wet and very windy day. I've got to say a huge thank you to Mini for inviting us on the launch of this Mini Electric, and another huge thanks to BOTB for making these videos possible. Go and check them out in the links below. And that's it. So thank you very much for watching. Links, subscribes, likes, all the good things, and I'll see you in another video. Bye-bye. Right, so looking around the external, that was limited run. Start that again, waffle. Now that actually means that I've done what I was talking about then. Jesus. I'll do that again. All right, third time's charm.